Before we get started, a quick reminder Unlocked is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult a qualified healthcare provider for any health concerns. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and give a thumbs up and share across all platforms. Unlocked Mental Performance, Physical Results. Welcome to Unlocked Mental Performance, Physical Results. I'm Coach Eric. And today, let's talk about high school spring break baseball. Why high school spring break baseball? Well, I just got back from a week-long trip to Florida. Had a little stop at a prep academy on the way down. Shout out to Combine Academy. It was great to see you guys. And while I was down in Florida, I got a chance to catch about half a dozen different teams playing various formats of spring baseball. So for those of you in the South, spring baseball sounds like regular season baseball, right? Because you begin your season the first week of February. But for those in the Northeast and especially the Midwest, that's not how it works out for them. They're lucky if they get a couple of games in before they get to spring break in March. And so what frequently happens with those schools, particularly the more competitive ones, is they plan a spring break trip that is optional for the high school baseball players. And they head on down to a sunny state, whether it be Florida, Alabama, Texas, Arizona, California, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they play in a spring training baseball series. And I'm kind of stumbling through what to call it because it's not really a tournament, although it can be. The format will vary from venue to venue, and it'll vary from what each team's expectations are for the event. So at this particular event, some of the teams were coming down from the Midwest. Some of the teams were local teams. And in fact, there was a couple of local prep academies there as well. And they all had slightly different intentions. Some teams are counting these games as part of their regular season package. Some teams are there treating this as preseason spring training scrimmages. And so the teams will have different approaches. And what you have to hope is that the director who's managing this whole thing organizes these teams in a manner that allows them to meet their goals and for their players to develop and improve. And that's always a heavy burden. So at this particular tournament, I saw a few different interesting things. And I think what really stood out to me is that the coach's intentions, whether how they were stated and then communicated to me by parents that I spoke to walking around, versus how the kids were responding on the field. So with Team A, they were there. They've already had some preseason games. They're trying to win games. They're primarily playing their starting lineup. They come from a small school. They've got about 25 kids, but they don't have a JV program because with 25 kids, that's not enough. So it was less about getting the back half of the roster reps and more about getting the front half of the roster ready to play a difficult varsity schedule because they didn't have the resources and the depth of talent to really be competitive without really hammering those starters. So they played some good, talented varsity teams. But what was really interesting to me, and what I thought was very telling in talking to one of their assistant coaches, one of the teams they played was a prep academy. Now, for those who aren't really familiar with the prep academy concept, they come in a lot of different formats. They might just be a traditional private school. They can be a boarding school. They can be a boarding school that focuses heavily on the athletic side of things, or in some cases, artistic side of things, music side of things, whatever your specialty is, as opposed to just taking a lot of general ed classes. So a student might only take 4 or 5 classes, and then by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they're done, and they get an extra 3 hours of working on their specialty. And their specialty could be robotics. It could be baseball. In this instance, it would be a baseball team. So this little school from the Midwest with 25 kids that came out to try out for their team made the trip down, 20 some odd hours to Florida. It's going up against a prep school. And this coach is like, oh boy, what did we sign up for? Well, they end up losing 6-1 in a very competitive game. The big difference on this game was that the pitcher for the prep school went the distance and only threw 70 pitches. He lived in the strike zone, had really nice off speed and breaking stuff. And it was clear he's had more experience and more reps than any pitcher this Midwestern school could throw at them. And what they learned was they were actually playing against the JV squad, not the varsity squad for this prep academy. And so it sort of sent a message that, hey guys, you know what? There's a big difference between Florida prep baseball and Podunk Midwest baseball. And that's not to dog on anybody who's in Podunk Midwest baseball. I live in the Midwest. I watch Midwest baseball all the time. And there's some great, great players here. But you have to understand the difference between going to a location where they can play baseball 10 months a year and they train indoors those other 2 months versus being in a location where it's very difficult to play beyond about 6 months a year. And the other issue is your student body well-rounded? Do they play lots of other sports? Or are they at a venue where, excuse me, they only play one sport and are really hyper-focused on it? Because here's what I can tell you. If you hyper-focus on something and you really, really max out what you're capable of, you can peak a lot earlier than a player who's taking their time in their development. And we've all seen the kid who peaks in 7th grade, right? They get to high school and they can't keep up any longer. Well, there's also guys who are going to peak at JV. There's guys who are going to peak in high school. And there are guys who are going to be able to carry that same peak, even though they reached it as a sophomore, all the way through 4 years of playing in college because they reached that level of play early. It doesn't necessarily raise their ceiling, though it can, but it will make it so that a JV squad out of Florida can win a game against a varsity squad out of Minnesota. That's just how this goes. So it was very interesting watching how that coach handled his team because he didn't lie to them. The parents all knew this was a JV team. The players knew this was a JV team. He just said, guys, they work really hard. They are really good. Most of those guys could be starters here. We're going to go out there. We're going to play our game to the best of our abilities. And they put a really good effort on the field. You would never have known it was 6-1 if you weren't looking at the scorebook. If you just watched the play, it looked like two really evenly matched teams. And I think it was very, very beneficial for those players coming from a small school in the Midwest to get an opportunity to play big boy baseball against a team that was equally leveled to them skill-wise, as opposed to saying, hey, no, we're varsity. We have to play varsity. Well, you play that prep school's varsity squad, and you've got a 24-0 game. That's not going to help anybody. That's not going to help the varsity squad for the prep school because pounding somebody doesn't teach you anything, doesn't get you better. And it's certainly not going to help the now demoralized varsity squad from the Midwest. So I thought that was really cool. I think that that's taking the development approach to your team, understanding where you fall and getting at it. I would have loved to have seen more of their depth play, and it's very possible they played their depth more in other matchups. I only watched one of their games, and I think that when you're judging a coach for their intentions, you have to understand the bigger picture. Maybe they had 3 games where they played the bottom of their roster. Maybe they said to all the parents right from the start, hey, look, on this trip, we're going to go in there and try to win. We're going to play our starters. We're going to go for it because we need to sharpen up the guys that are going to be responsible for the next 26 games. And that's how we do this thing when we come down here. So if you're worried about your playtime, let's talk about it ahead of time. I don't know. I don't know how they handled that. What I do know is they had great support from the parents. They had a very active vocal bench, and they played a really good game against a really good team. So that was really fun for me to watch and to kind of see how a varsity coach and a varsity team handled playing a superior opponent that was labeled JV and not letting that label ruin the atmosphere. Because I've been places where the atmosphere gets ruined by labels. I've been places where atmosphere gets ruined by parents. I can tell you, actually, that's a good segue here. Eric, let's do a segue here. There was a moment in one of the games I was watching, and I won't tell you what schools it were. I'm going to keep all those names to myself, but there was a foul ball back at the fence line behind the catcher, and he strips off his mask and he's racing towards the fence line, and it's going to be about 5 feet short of the fence. So he's going to have a play on it if he hustles. And he yells, "I've got it." Pitcher slams on his brakes. Third baseman slams on his brakes. They're all just going to see how he handles this. And a mom for the other team yells in a rather belligerent tone, "No, you don't." And it was just one of those moments. I'm watching a game on a different field, and I'm talking to the dad of a pitcher for that game. And we hear this, and we just both stop mid-conversation, and we turn and we look. And there's this mom up against the fence yelling at this high school catcher. And I wasn't watching that game. I have no idea what level those schools were. I know one was a Florida school. One was a Midwestern school. That was a pool play that had a lot of intermixing like that. And, it's just one of those things where, as a parent, that kind of sends the wrong message in a spring game, especially if you're the parent of the more experienced team, the top dog team, to be belligerent and screaming at a high school kid. Not a great look. And I thought it was very telling. The game I was watching was two Midwest teams playing each other, both varsity teams. It was a non-competitive game. The larger school, the Division I school, jumped out to an early lead against a D4 team, and they just never got traction to get back into the game. But they used it as an opportunity. They shuffled some guys around a little bit. But you're sitting here watching this thing, and you're thinking to yourself, man, what is going on this other field that we need to be yelling at high school players? So you see those kind of things when you go to these events, and you've got 4 fields, 5 fields, 6 fields, 12 fields. In this instance, it was just 4 fields, all at the same venue going, right? So I think the observation there is, if you're a parent or if you're a player supporting, watching, getting ready for the next game, and you're on the sidelines watching a game on the field, understand that you're not there to interact with the players on the field. If you want to yell, good job, or you want to be supportive, even if you want to boo after the fact, I'm not going to say you shouldn't. I mean, you shouldn't, but you do you if the play's done, right? Don't ever interfere in a live play. Don't slam things against the fence. Don't shout, "I got it" on pop flies, or "No, you don't" on pop flies. Don't call out that, somebody's stealing when they're not. You take away from the experience of these young men that are learning to play. And this applies to softball too. I watched some softball this week, and honestly, their parents are even more vocal than baseball parents. I mean, it's amazing how much we try to interject from the sidelines, not just instruction. Every coach gets driven crazy by that, but interference, yelling things at players to confuse them, yelling while pitchers are in their windup. If you're outside the fence, keep your comments outside the fence. Don't ruin the development of these young men. These are not professional athletes. You want to boo and yell at your favorite MLB game, I guess that's your deal, but don't do it to teenagers who are trying to love this game and play this game. So, all right, enough about that. What did I learn specifically that I wanted to do this episode about? I want to talk about expectations, specifically on the players. One of the big things I noticed is a distinct difference in players that were getting 7 or 8 or 9 at bats over the course of 3 or 4 games versus the level of nervousness and level of expectation on players who are getting only a couple of at bats over the course of the entire time. When you're fighting for a job, yes, the coach needs to put pressure on you to show that you can survive the pressure and thrive and grow as a player. But what I witnessed was the ability of a player to bounce back is oftentimes related to how much faith they believe the coach has in them. So if you've got a player who's afraid this is going to be their only at-bats of the season, they're gripping the bat extra tight, they're feeling the tension, And too often, what I saw is that a player like that would get out, and rather than get built back up, the coach would yell at him as if to reinforce the fact that I told you so, you can't do this. So they've got these young men, and this is especially true with the teams that are there on scrimmages. If you're playing 2 innings and 2 innings and 2 innings on rotations, and these guys are going to get 2 of the innings, and your starters are going to get 4 of the 6 or 7 innings, excuse me, you're doing a disservice to that young man if you beat him down, especially if you're not also treating starters the same way. I think that's a big, big point when it comes to, do you put your arm around them and support them, or do you beat them down? I'm not all for a lot of instruction during games, certainly not a lot of hostile language during games. I don't believe that's going to build up players' confidence. And I think in games, building up a player's confidence is way more important than fixing the timing on their swing. Do that at practice. But I think what was interesting is I witnessed from a lot of coaches during these scrimmages a lot of hostility and firm tones towards the guys that were clearly battling, trying to win a job, versus the guys you saw a lot more of. Those guys, they boot a ball. It's like, all right, that's all right. You're going to get the next one. And they're going to get another shot. They're going to get a next one. The guy who's trying to earn some innings, he boots the ball, and it's like, we knew he wasn't the guy. And they go run somebody else out there. And what you're doing in that you feel like, well, I'm sharpening the steel. That guy's not my problem now. He's going to go sit on the bench. But you don't know what that kid's going to become. You don't know what kind of player that kid can be. You think you know, because we all think we know. I do this all the time. I watch these prospects coming up, and I'm like, yeah, that kid's going to be a stud. If that was the case, second-round draft picks in the MLB don't burn out, get DFA'd, get traded, end up not producing. Number 2, number 3 overall picks in the draft don't bust. If we can all just look at these guys and know who it's going to be. And I think at the high school level, we really, really forget that. And it tends to be a situation where the guys who are established, whether it's by being a senior, a more veteran player, whether it has to do with what travel organization you play in and the coach's faith in what you're doing in your off season, whether it's who mom and dad knows. I mean, there's a million reasons that a coach has faith in a player. It might just be that guy hit 550 last season and had 6 dingers. But it's really hard to let go of what you know and support these guys that are coming through that aren't the guys that you know are going to be successful. And I think that was a growing trend I watched throughout this spring event. And it really makes me question where we're at as far as being a development-focused sport when it comes to baseball. Because when I talk to players about their club teams, when I talk to coaches about their club teams, their travel teams, their select teams, whatever you want to call them, they're all about winning tournaments. And they want to get you into college so they can add you to their website list of names of guys who got into college. But really, they want to win tournaments. And when I talk to players and coaches about high school and the expectations there, more and more I'm hearing it's about winning our league, winning our division, winning state. They'll develop in the offseason. In other words, they're shoving development off on these club teams. Except these club teams, these summer ball teams, are only playing with these kids for a couple of months in the summer and maybe some fall ball. And so they're looking to win. So I think what they're saying is that the club coaches and the high school coaches, which are frequently the same guys, by the way, if you want to develop, take private lessons or join a really, really high-end club that has their own indoor facility and their own training facility and either charge you for membership to use those facilities, or you can sign up for private lessons. Either way, it's all about things that aren't directly related to what you're doing with the team. It's not team activities. It's not team development. It's individual development, small group development. It's extra development beyond what you can do with your team. And I find that to be really disheartening. especially at the high school and middle school levels. If you're representing your school, you're representing your community. And these coaches, in my opinion, should be reaching down and building up these young players and coming into a season not with what they know they're going to win with, but with the expectation that they're going to discover who they can grow and build and make into better players. And that goes for any sport. But since we're talking baseball, we're talking baseball. So if you've got preseason scrimmages, if you've got a spring training trip, if you're not holding tryouts, you as a coach and you as a player and you as a veteran player and you as a star player need to start looking at ways to take the guys who are farther down the depth chart and building them up. Because that's not only going to make that person a better player, it's not giving them reps isn't directly taking away from the veteran. They can't have every rep in practice anyway. It's giving them someone to train with that is better. You have more skill development when player A and player B are both skilled than when player A gets all the attention and player B is just left at the end of the bench. You have better depth replacement when player A gets injured if player B isn't scared out of his mind that every mistake he makes is going to result in him getting dumped to the side. When the entire team feels like they're getting adequate reps, adequate respect, and they're being supported by the coach, that it's not just these top guys and the coaching staff and everybody else is garbage. When you have that kind of a team, when you go to these kind of events, you can see it during warm-ups. You can see it during warm-ups. You watch these teams warm up, and the teams that are clicking, the teams that have top to bottom support and respect amongst their team, they look much, much better than the teams that have created these striations within their groups. They're layering their players. They're devaluing certain players and raising the value of others. You can tell the difference between teams that are a cohesive unit that believe they all need to succeed for any of them to succeed versus the teams that are petty. And just because you're the petty team doesn't mean you're not going to win. Your starters might be that much better than the other team's starters. You might get lucky that day. You might get the bounces. I'm not talking about results. If you're judging the success of your season in April on results, you're missing the point. Progress. You need progress. So it's all about the process. So we talk about that all the time, process to progress, right? Build up your players, support your players, give everyone their shot. Because if you don't, you're doing yourself as a coach a disservice. You're doing yourself as a star player a disservice if you're bumping those guys out of rotation. If you're look, let's face it, you're big man and people. If you're sitting there saying, no, you freshmen, get out of here. I'm doing this. You're wasting potential that could make you as a player better, you as a team better, you as an organization better. And if you're at the lower end, if you're a less skilled player, don't hang your head, but also don't be a jerk. Too often I see these guys try to peacock to try to prove that they can hang with the big boys. Know your place, get every rep you can get, do the extra work where you can. And if you're really, really, really smart, get a group together, hopefully with a mentor from one of these better players, to do extra work so you don't have to rely on private lessons. You don't have to rely on your parents forking out extra cash. Find ways to get that work done. And I think that level of teamwork is what builds the team. And it starts with the coaching staff. But if your coach isn't supportive of it, don't let it end with the coaching staff. And I know I'm talking sometimes to coaches, sometimes to players in this episode, and it's a little disjointed, but I think it's really important to understand that when you go to these things and you watch teams at their worst, and spring training is teams at their worst, right? You're still trying to find your identity. You're still trying to piece together your starting lineup, hopefully. But when you watch a team that is crisp, that is on the same page, warm up, and you look out there and you're like, man, I'm not sure. I mean, those two guys are horses. But after that, I'm not sure who their starting nine is. That's what you want as a baseball team. And as a basketball team, when you're doing shoot around, you don't want them to know who your starting five are other than the obvious superstar, right? If you're not doing that as a player and you're not doing that as a coach and you're not taking those opportunities to build up the momentum of your team through support, through reps, through respect, you're wasting a golden opportunity. And if you're going on these team bonding trips where these guys are supposed to be spending all these hours together so they can grow as a team and find each other as brothers, that starts at the top with the coach, with the captain, with the leaders, and with the stars. And if you don't push it all the way down to the bottom to raise those guys up, you're going to leave them behind. And no sport can afford to just lose their players. It's not good for the community. It's not good for the future of the sport. And it's not good for the players at either end of the spectrum. So, I'm Coach Eric. I have ranted and raved about what I witnessed as far as lack of support at preseason games. And I hope that you listen to this and you take into consideration where you fall on this spectrum and be realistic. Are you a coach? Are you a parent? Hope you're not one that yells at the kids on the field. Are you a star? Are you a scrub? And understand that where you are today isn't where you're necessarily going to be tomorrow. You can be the best player on your team today, and in 2 years, have trouble getting on the field. You can have trouble getting on the field today, and in 2 years, be a star. And we all need to remember that. Parents need to remember that when they're cheering for these kids. Coaches need to remember that when they're coaching these kids. And players, you need to remember that when you're looking at your teammates. Don't judge them as less than you. Judge them as part of you. I'm Coach Eric. This has been Unlocked Mental Performance, Physical Results. Thank you for joining me.
To the plate, feeling the weight. The crowd's cheering loud, but it's up to fate. Struck out too many times, doubts creeping in, but he knows in his heart it's time to begin. He remembers the lessons, the words that they say. Keep your head up high, don't let fear lead the way. Act, take a swing, let the baton talk. Chest high, walk the walk. Breathe in deep, let the pressure unlock. You are focused, ready to rock. Commit to the moment, let the past fade away. Get back in the game, you're ready to play. The sun's shining bright, he's feeling the heat. With every deep breath, he's back on his feet. Visualizing success, he's got a new plan. With the tools from Play Big, he's a brand new man. He knows it's a journey, not just a quick fix. With patience and practice, he'll find his own mix. Act, take a swing, let the back to the top. Chest high, walk the walk. Breathe in deep, let the pressure unlock. You are focused, ready to rock. Commit to the moment, let the past fade away. Get back in the game, you're ready to play. Every setback's a lesson, every strike's a chance to rise up stronger, to take a new stance. With the crowd on his side, he's ready to show. With the ABCs in his heart, he's ready to go. Take a swing, let the back to the talk. Chest high, walk the walk. Breathe in deep, let the pressure unlock. You are focused, ready to rock. Commit to the moment, let the past fade away. Get back in the game, you're ready to play. So here's to the slumps, the struggles we face. With courage and commitment, we'll find our own place. Every new inning is a chance to rise. Chase the champion spirit to the skies. Every new inning is a chance to rise.